Da 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 da! What's my good cheer? Welcome, welcome, everybody. Let's give YouTube a couple of minutes, get those notifications out, let people know I've gone live. And in the meantime, if you've never met me before, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside, and I am experimenting. It is, in those little failures and those attempts that we eventually figure things out. But I've been trying to figure something out here for a month or so, trying not to invest the big bucks. It is my glasses, you guys. It's the glare of the lighting on my glasses. It's driving me. And it's my own fault. But in this moment, getting a new pair of glasses is not quite an option. It is something that is on the list to get accomplished, but it isn't the priority. I can read, I can see. The only thing is, you guys can't see me because I got big fly eyes because I ruined the reflective coating on my glasses. But you can tell that it does agitate me, right? Because I'm still talking about it 2 minutes later. You guys, I hope you're having an amazing, amazing week. Today, it was about setting goals, getting things done, doing it at a pace that I felt comfortable at. Because, being sensitive to conversations and experiences in your environment, it can be a lot. It really can be a lot. You want to contribute, you want to be that person to jump in and save the day. But if you do that, then in the end, everybody's happy except for you sometimes. And in the lessons, right, it's about treating ourselves better than what we have been in the past. I think we're just moving into generations right now when we're actually taking into consideration, because we have been in such fright and flight for probably thousands from the very beginning, right? It's only up until recently, in the past few hundred years, not in the past few hundred years, maybe in the past couple of 100 years, where people are not out in the world and totally, right? There are those pockets. We are not perfect. We are human, but considering where we're coming from, right? Where we were at, not even 200 years ago, I think we're doing absolutely magnificent. I really do. I love history. I delve into it pretty good, and I understand that, now that in these generations that are coming up now, we're being pulled into AI learning, and right, this digital age, this technical, very technical age, this age of science and medicine and the stars, right? And ourselves, right? We're waking up. And it's not just it's not a private club anymore. And not only is it a private club, right? They have those answers. They have the ability out there to help others along, and yet they let people struggle. They let people struggle, and everybody's bumbling along and super stressed out. And like I said, right, when you're sensitive to these kind of things, it drums up all kinds of stuff in us. And for each one of us, it will be different. For myself, guilt and shame for not doing more, helping more, paying more attention, right? And being in that state of fright all the time, just because constantly thinking that I'm in trouble. Now, if I stay on top of my own personal needs without extending myself out, right? And deviating all out there, that maybe I could make a little bit of headway. And sometimes it's one person making that headway and then reaching behind and pulling everybody up, right? But when we get dragged into everybody else's stories, and my family in this moment, my sister came to visit me. Oh, I was in my projects today. I tell you, I give myself these little project lists, just to keep me moving, just to keep me in that state of moving forward. And again, it's stuff that needs to get done. And when it's done, I'm so glad that I got it done. Today, I only had a couple things. I had the bathroom to do and my walk-in closet, but oh my goodness, it was stuffed so full. And it took me a couple of hours to do. But my sister Alice popped in right when I was in the middle of it. She could barely get into the door of my apartment, and I had to apologize to her. I'm sorry. I says I'm in it, and I would have loved to see her, see how nice and clean and organized my place is. But I was just cleaning out another cubbyhole of mess and taking stuff down to the garbage. I threw out some beautiful lamps today. I kept one right now, part of the experiment, to say, well, maybe if I use this lamp, maybe it won't glare on my glasses. So I pulled out my little table and slapped it on there. But it's worse than the big lights up there. I think I'm just going to have to invest in a new pair of glasses. It's right. It's part of my brand. I show up here every day. I don't want to be coming in like fly eyes. See, still talking about it, still agitated about it. But if we don't have something to grumble about, right? Because that's in us when we're not feeling good, right? We want to kind of point out the little irritating or weak aspects of other people or organizations or right different networks and stuff, and we just kind of want to bring everybody down to our own level. In the past few years, really digging into things, when I came into this, I just had a curiosities for a few questions about my own life, about what went wrong, uh, asking a few why questions and stuff. And, sometimes in being pulled into looking for those answers, it pulls up answers to things that you didn't even know they were questions that maybe you should have asked, right? Because we're just not paying attention. But I'm paying attention. Oh my goodness. Let's see. Oh my goodness. Hi, Kathy. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Like I said, I was in my projects today, and I'm getting things done. I'm feeling pretty good, limiting a lot of stuff that I don't need. Good stuff. And those good stuff I throw it in the laundry basket with my laundry, so that when I go down to the laundry room, I have all these little lovely things and I lay them across the folding table. People go in there and they just grab everything. I had some, they weren't out of date or anything, but they were vegetables and canned vegetables and stuff in my cupboard, and I didn't want them. And it's always nice because somebody is struggling with the groceries in the cupboards, and uh, you know, somebody's going to appreciate a can of corn or a can of peas, right? Ah, thank you, Kathy. Always happy that you're here. I went to the post office today and I dropped off a parcel, and I was so pleased with the pricing of the box, and I can send this little box about this big for $20. I could send it anywheres in Canada. And I went, oh my goodness, I could just stuff as long as it's not more than 5 pounds. I could stuff it full of all kinds of little lovelies. So yeah, so the next one, as soon as I got that extra 20, I so appreciate, Kathy, just as a little thank you, your kindness and your company, right? In my adventures and in my misadventures and my, the moments that we all have, and everybody's so scared to support people in their moments, right? And that's where the guilt comes up in me, because we can feel that in people. We can see the sadness. And like I said, my sister came to visit me today. She could barely get in the door. And I was so into my project, but I looked at her and I made a mental note of how tired she looked. She looked so tired. And I meant to give her a phone call tonight and just chit chat with her a little bit, with the tariffs going on and stuff. Our little business of shipping into the States has kind of been cut right off, right? So she's stressing out a little bit because she loves selling, being a reseller and being a little entrepreneur. She's always been that person, and I can see maybe it's a little bit breaking her heart with the struggling, because she just bought a new car, and as soon as she bought the car, all this stuff started happening with the tariffs, and her business went down, and claiming all this money and doing taxes backwards and stuff. So it's, yeah, but I told her, I says, yeah, but you know what? You get to check a box on the income tax return that gives you extra tax deductions for being an entrepreneur. If you're going to get dinged in your eBay sales, right? It's you're an entrepreneur. There are tax benefits to that. So it might work out to your benefit, right? It's not like you're making a gazillion dollars, but at the same time, right? If eBay considers you an entrepreneur, and it gives you those money receiving receipts and stuff, then you have to be able to use the receipts that you pay for your merchandise and deduct all that as a business cost. You'll be able to claim your gas. You'll be able to tick that box on the income tax return that says entrepreneur and get another big, right? There'll be, I says, don't worry about it. You stress so much about things that aren't even happening in this moment, just right. And there's more to life. There's lots of good things. She came to see her son. I bet you she had a really nice visit with her son, and she's got a good job, and she's got a great boyfriend, and there's lots of things to be happy about, right? But in not being preachy about that, I didn't say any of that. I was just all into my projects, and we had a short conversation, and she kept it basically on the business side. But I miss my little outings with her. We haven't gone in a few weeks, out on one of our day afternoon trips and grab a cup of coffee and start hitting all the thrift stores to find scores and stuff. I really miss those afternoons, just not for the fact that it's, there's scores and stuff, and it's our business to do that, but it's just in that company. I was really enjoying, making friends with my second youngest sister. And as adults, that's something that we've been recently expanding in that, because when I was in high school, like, she was just a little kid just starting school and stuff. So we never really got to be friends. Yes, she was my sister and I loved her to death, but we weren't buddies, right? I didn't hang with her. She didn't hang with me unless I was babysitting her. So, my friend was my sister Tracy, who was only a year younger than I was. And then my sister Alice, I guess, was friends with my youngest sister Carolyn, right? So now, as we're all adults, and it seems closer to age, but I think it's just because I don't appreciate my real age sometimes. I feel I'm relatable. I have friends of all different ages. I have people that I interact with, and I don't really look at an age as a obstacle in relationships, because you base your relationships, right? You never know. Like, even when I'm married, my husband was 10 years younger than me. It wasn't my, well, maybe it was my intent, right? It was because it was one of those things, but still, it wasn't a good analogy on that. But you can't help, right, these relationships, who you love and who you care about, whether it's a boyfriend or a husband or your sister or a good friend or whatever it is. When you care about somebody, right, it's important to keep those relationships going. So when my sister became more closer to my age, which it felt like, because now we're not looking at the actual age. I couldn't tell you how old my sister is, to be exact, because we're not counting. I could barely remember my own age. you know I get a little bit of reminder when it gets to my birthday, and then I totally forget, and then I just have to stop for a minute to kind of figure out what my age is. And I'm grateful for that, because a lot of the reason for that is because my physicality. Is not that I don't have issues, right? I started today something I've never tried. I have been on every single diet that you could possibly think of. My parents have had me on diet since I was like 6 years old. And I understand that these are coping mechanisms, that, right, habits that I use for coping, and not just coping now. I use it as reward. I use it after a catastrophe I just gotten out of. You've had a hard day at work, and then you're home, and then what do you want to do? You want to do something you love, and my problem is the food. I just finished losing 24 pounds, and I gained the 24 pounds back. It only took me a month, and I gained that 24 pounds back, right? And that's because of the things that have been going on in my life, and I can put the blame on that. But it's only a symptom, right? It's my weight is not the problem. So it's a matter of bringing more joy into my life, and a little bit more, I think, discipline, right? Accountability. And I thought, well, something I've never tried when it comes to food. It's not a diet, but lots of times you hear those people where they don't eat after 7 o'clock, right? And so I thought, I'll try that, because I'm a night eater. I've always been nocturnal, so most of my eating has been at night, after I've slowed down from the busy being out and about, working, hanging with my sisters or friends or stuff, I'm busy anyway. So it's when I get home and get to that point and go, oh, right? Because it's a lot. Because you're around people, you're around dealing with your weight, your brain's going, you're dealing with problems for the future, not in the moment, but they're coming up. I know my house bills are going to be coming due, so I'm working on those in the moment, and then we could just beat ourselves up in the stress of that, right? And put ourselves in one of those moods. One of those moods that just bring us down. And the idea is just to stay positive. And I find that when I stay positive, it's because I'm slowed it down a little bit. right? So we're gonna just slow it down because I was just in my cleaning, just finishing up my cleaning projects and stuff. I haven't set my list of things for tomorrow, or have I? I think I might have already. I'm trying to make arrangements to meet up with people for a couple of purchases, and I have a tomorrow's listing day, so I have to list two things tomorrow. I don't even have them picked out, but I have to pick two things and list them, and yeah, and just take things slowly, right? I'm making movement. I'm paying attention, right? I can see it. I feel it, you guys, right? And I don't understand it like some people understand it. I don't, right? I'm creating the best human being I possibly can, but I also understand, right? And I also get there's a lot more in that mix, right? And so, in looking for those answers, right? Those whys, those things that trip me up and make it so I have those symptoms of, right? It would save me lots of money, right? If I didn't like the munchies, and not just the munchies, like I want to introduce more vegetables, right? Good vegetables into my diet and stuff. But I thought, let's just stop eating at 8 o'clock. And that's reasonable for me because I'm only up for a couple of hours after that. Now, around this time, I'm starting to wind down. I'm doing my live show, and you relax for an hour. After that, you're ready. You're ready to end your day anyway. So I thought that would work out really well. Whether or not it'll help me to lose weight, I don't know. But what it will do is set me into a healthy habit, and that was the idea for me, is to um, show that accountability to myself and try it out, because it is in the experimentation that we're going to happen on to things that will work. Like I said, I have been on every single diet out, like there's nothing, right? Except for that Ozempic. I've never tried that. I'm not a big medication pill person. I think if you're going to lose weight, it should be um, uh, a body and soul kind of partnership project to do, so that you can actually take credit for it, so that you can actually feel good about it, or feel good about it, and actually you can be the evidence for somebody else that it can be done, right? I would love to be a skinny mini one more time, but I'm okay. I'm 64. I'm 64 years old, and for my emotional well-being, I no longer have to beat myself up. But in saying that, too, it doesn't let me off the hook in taking the lessons that might help me to resolve, for the next time around, so that I know that I can have a little bit more confidence in myself and feel good about whatever body that I'm in. And, body issues for me were a big thing growing up, and I'd have to say most of it was projected. I don't know how I didn't notice that. It wasn't till later in my early teens, early adulthood, that I did finally get it into my big brain that I was a big person, and I just allowed that weight to come on until eventually I was like 300 pounds. I had to have an operation to help me take that weight off. And I'm so glad that I did, because it's something I would never have been able, I don't think, to do for myself. I think that was a gift, that was something that came across my path, meant for me to say yes to. And I'm grateful that I said yes to it and I followed through with that, and I got to have that experience, because I believe that was the change. That was the first one. And even if I wasn't aware of any of it, the ball starts moving, doesn't it? It's the top of the mountain, a big little teeny weeny snowball ball, and it starts going down the hill, and the snowball just gets bigger and bigger and bigger until one day it just kind of hits a rock and flies into the air and breaks into two, or right, a few pieces, and they land in the on the bank of the mountain, and they start rolling again, and then you got a gazillion of these smoke snowballs going on, right? And it's the juggling, right? Especially if those are all parts of you and they're all going off in different directions, right? So it's a matter of just I find lots of times that I get into a lot of subjects. I try to stay in the subjects of my interests, knowing that because I get distracted easily, that instead of jumping up and going to get something to eat, I'm just jumping into a different project that I need to get done, or into one of my hobbies, or into research for my trip for the next year, and also my dreams for the future, and then for those needs and those choices that I'm making in the moment, and being curious as to those choices or lack of, and just feeling them out in my day to day, and then coming in here and sharing those experiences or lack of experiences. I just appreciate that you guys keep company. Thank you, Kathy. Super, super amazing. I have the most amazing people that hang out with me, and I'm so grateful for that. It gives me that little bit of extra courage, right? Because lots of us, we need that little bit of a kick, because a lot of the conversations that we have are conversations that we don't have. We just keep them to ourselves, right? And then we're not able to pass along any, right? You might not think it's vital, but for a lot of the information that I've come across, or that has come across my path, and I go, why did I not ever hear of that before? Why is this the first time I never thought of it that way. Are you kidding me? And I just get blown away by it all the time. And I think that's one of the benefits of being on social media and just participating, not just coming in and right and doing my lives, but actually being a part of other people's conversations, and other people's journeys, right? This is kind of neat to discover that there are other people out there that are super brave in what they bring to the table, because a lot of it is even really really hard for me to digest, but because I'm so curious and how people think and how people work, and I feel out the hearts, right? I feel out people's intent. That's my big thing, is feeling out intent. Is very common in people who have dynamic upbringings, and sometimes traumatic and scary events in their lives that change them, right? That it's a common trait in being a little bit hyper vigilant and paying attention and stuff like that, right? But I was paying attention, but I was paying attention in a way that kind of made me think of all the content creators and thought leaders out there. My little selection of chocolates, right? It's a chocolate box, and the people I put in each one of those little chocolate indents in the box. And it's such a selection, right? Different religions. I don't usually pay too much attention to political ideas unless they are aggressive in any way against another culture. So then I would pay a little bit more attention into the political contribution, but usually I stay out of that. Politics is a hard subject to get in, and it can easily rub you the wrong way. But because I don't have interest in those topics, right? I mean, I'd love to see the water cleaner, and I would love to see water in all the countries. I'd love to see toilet infrastructure in India and proper housing codes, and right. I would, but that's not my jurisdiction, and that just would make me a dictator. If I'm saying, well, you can't be a country if you don't have toilets, right? That how fair is that? And but these are the things that we learn as we move along, as we have conversations, and as we sit in conversations that sometimes you kind of sit in it and you go, what is this? I never heard of this anymore. What are they doing? What are they saying? What's this all about? And you might get through half the conversations, just say, this is beyond, right beyond me, and then come back at another time, and you're sitting in on an interesting conversation, which was the same conversation that you didn't have any inkling of, like like a half a year ago. Like, it's really incredible. A good example for me is Carl Jung, right? I've been in working in emotions, understanding emotions, and working in trauma and narcissism and different personality disorders, right? We all have handicaps, and whether they're emotional, mental, physical, we all have handicaps. And I recognize this because of my own dynamic family. But at the same time, I recognized other things. And the thing we have to remember is the intent of those actions and conversations that trip us up, because lots of people, right, they don't want to hurt us. Lots of people stick their foot in their mouths and just don't understand what kind of damage they're doing when they open up their mouths and stuff. And I just didn't want to be that person. But you delve into the conversations and you think, oh my goodness, the fact that we're just having these conversations now and being able to do it so openly, right? And being comfortable that, right? Google's got the right tags going on and knows me well enough that knows who might be interested in what I've got to say. But I am not even this close to being as brave as some of these other people that I sit in their conversations. But that Carl Jung, I couldn't understand anything coming out of his mouth. I didn't get his ideas. I thought he was super wacky. He was into the deep spiritualism and stuff. And I'm such a realist. I try to keep it in the mindset, but I'm open and I'm right. I study the different religions and cultural ideas because I know these are the people that I want to be working with, right? That would make my job interesting too, because then I would get to learn about different cultures and different ideas from people who live in different places or grew up in dynamic families like I did, but not the same kind of dynamic family. And I find that all interesting because it kind of fits into the whole reason why I wanted to work in emotions, was to get those answers for myself, right? Cindy's not coming back, but I believe those other parts of me are going to come back. But what if those other parts of me come back, and I'm sure they have many, 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 many times in different cultures, right? In different traditions and different ideas. And wouldn't it be amazing if I could absorb some of that information before I even stepped into that, so that I could better understand other people? And then if I'm coming back, maybe I could understand a little bit better and kind of misstep in some of those pit holes that I'm sure that I have been stepping into for lifetimes after lifetimes after lifetimes, right? It's about moving forward. I want to enjoy this process, but I've got to do it very slowly, and I really have to feel it out, right? In the beginning, I just like, okay, well, just get me there and we'll worry about all that stuff later. Just get me there and we'll worry about it. Oh my goodness, I couldn't even imagine what kind of situations I would have found myself in if I had followed through with that. If I hadn't gone slow, I would have, right? I really get the sense and the true importance of not bypassing, right? The lessons, the conversations, and they can be coming out of the blue from anywhere. You would never, never think for a moment how the lessons come to us, right? Even last week, when my cat passed away, there was just one lesson after another. And then, to be able to have those kind of experiences, because I haven't had a lot of those kind of experiences in the past few years, that it was important for me to kind of feel it out, right? To see how I was feeling in that. And I recognized a lot of things that I never recognized before in my experiences. And that's the whole idea, that we can learn through our own experiences. But if you can set yourself up in a way where you can live vicariously through somebody else's experience, or actually just sit with somebody as they share their experience, and you're just that company in the re-experiencing. And sometimes that's the best way to do it, because somebody feels safe to go back to that moment that messed them up for life. I have no idea. I know it was my parents' hypervigilance in the worry, because there was a lot of obesity on both sides of the family, that they brought that fear into their own family. And because I was the oldest, they just loaded it on me and made the example for for my sisters, who all have issues too when it comes to food, right? Even the diabetes and everything. So they're supposed to be eating properly. But because I was the oldest and I was setting the example, I now have that heaviness of the guilt, because my mother always used me as the example to my sister. Do you want to grow up to look like Cindy? Right? So they always were roller coasting in their own weights, right? And it didn't help that my sister Tracy could eat like a cow and not gain a pound her entire life. Like, it was a running joke in our family. And it was so true. Once she hit her 20s, it turned into a different story when she matured a little bit more. But in her childhood and her teenage years, oh my goodness, she could plow that food down 24/7, and she wasn't even super active either. And just her metabolism, and she had a really good metabolism, and she just stayed skinny and beautiful, right? And I thought that was pretty incredible. But at the same time, it kind of messed me up in a way, because, right, I couldn't eat whatever I want and not gain weight. That wasn't the circumstance for me. It turned out it was totally opposite, right? I gain a pound just looking at a chocolate bar, let alone even before I got it into my mouth. But again, it's in that projected in what I thought about myself because I was in that, right? And my sister, she was right. She did pretty good for herself. That she was able to keep that positive attitude. My sisters, all we all did really good in that. Of course, perfect, no, considering the dynamic family that we are. I think we did pretty. Right. I think it was arranged that way that we all were able to manage to get through that as a family right to the very end. Right. And I have three sisters and myself, and we're all still alive and kicking. And yeah, alive and kicking. But isn't that life? Right. Isn't that the way life is? And the fact that we are challenged by that, and we're I feel, because I still enjoy life despite sometimes how difficult it is, how sad it is, how heartbreaking it is, how scary it is sometimes, right? You just look forward, understanding those moments, right, aren't going to last forever, and something will happen and the sun will come out, and all it takes is one magnificent moment, and it might be enough to wipe out all the misery of the past moments. You never know, right? And this is the way I feel about things, and this is why, you know, uh, I can get myself in these scary situations, and I can just everything's going to be okay, and just trust that everything's going to be okay. And guess what? Everything is okay. Is it magnificent? Maybe not. I was actually, who was there? Was a thought leader tonight, and she was talking about manifesting and how she goes down to the river edge and she screams to the water, right? Her affirmations and her manifestations, and because she says water is just so powerful, and I believe that. I could tell you just from the showers. I get in the shower, and I got to make sure I get in the shower right before an appointment. Otherwise, I'm just going to sit in that shower for an hour and I'll lose complete time. And soaking in a bathtub, I have to talk myself out of it because soaking in a bathtub is not technically very good, right? But I got the tub soaking right now as part of the chore list today. So it's my last chore. All it needs to be done is a quick wipe now, but it's full of cleaners, soaking in its cleaners and stuff, and quick rinse, and I'll be able to have a nice bath and just soak in the water for, oh, sometimes for half an hour. I just lay there and just soak it in. I really do love the water. Maybe I'll go swimming next week. It'll be on my list, right? Right? It's time for me to get out and about and connecting with the mother nature a little bit. I know I've got projects and things that I need to get done, but in that process, I want to make sure that I catch the little bit of there's no more fall left, you guys. The leaves are all gone. It's cold. I'm wearing gloves. I'm in my little bonnet with my ear covers already. And but there's no snow or ice on the ground. So you can always bundle up. And I'm going to go out and spend a little bit of time and outside. And it's important that I do that, right? Every week, just go for a nice long walk twice a week. I want to twice a week minimum to be outside on the long walks, and I'll do that all winter long. Okay, I don't know. Oh, look at you guys, yibber yabbering away. Let me have a sip of my cold juice here. I've been really dehydrated lately. So I've just been trying to get a lot of fluids into me. And it makes me feel good, but I know that fresh air will make me feel even better. Even tonight, the idea comes to you, you should just get up and just start. So maybe should I just put my boots on after my live show and just go and get a cup of coffee? Go for a walk tonight. Get a cup of coffee. Then I can make my chore list for tomorrow because there's still, as I'm doing things, I'm seeing other things that need to get done. All of this needs to be all taken apart and dusted. I wanted to put up my Scotty dog. Oh, it's on the shelf, just waiting for a spot. Um, can you see it over there? Oh, there. You can see it on the shelf. Whoop, right, right there. That's my Scotty dog ornament that I bring out for Christmas. I only have 3 ornaments. I have my ornaments that my sister made me for during COVID. She was an entrepreneur and she made a ton of money and she made these Christmas ornaments. Really, here, let me show you. Ah, I thought it was pretty ingenious. She got one of those cricket decal machines, and she made me 3 of them. I can't remember what the other one was. It fell behind my fireplace, but I've got to dust that out and pull it all out anyway. So I'll get that. But she got this one here. She made me this one, and she did it with her cricket machine, right? And she made a fortune on these. She make like 3 of them, and then she would sell them, and I think she was selling them for $30 or something. She said they cost her like $1.50 each to make. She just made a fortune when we were locked down. Everybody was all locked down, and she was making money. Yeah, but she made this one here, 2020 stink, stank, stunk. And she made me that. I thought it was so cute. And then this one, she made it out of a chapstick. And I thought, oh, that's so cool, right? And look at, she just made a little sticker with that Cricut sticker machine, and it's a Lysol, and she wrapped it around the chapstick, and it actually looks like Lysol. I thought that was so good. So I have this ceramic tree on my mantle here. So I have these as Christmas ornaments. I have a ceramic Christmas tree, and I have my Scotty dog. That's Christmas in my house. And that's quite a bit more than it was, say, 10 years ago. Yeah, 10 years ago, I didn't celebrate. Right? When my marriage fell apart, that was it. Christmas was over, right? It's nice to see Christmas come back. And I'm going to get my new pop up tent for Christmas. And I gave my sister the Christmas list. So I'm excited about a new tent. Yeah, so I don't have to worry about that for next year's trip. Okay, so let's grab a card. We're just going to go into it for a couple of minutes. I'm going to come in because I know I was talking about something and I wanted to say something, and then I just trailed off another branch and I just went down another route. If it comes back to me, amazing. Okay. Let's get a word we haven't had yet. That would be neat. We seem to get the same cards all the time. So let's get a card that's a little bit different. And if you don't know, these are 54 powerful words. And today's word is, oh, isn't that a good one? It's something we should all be working on right now. I really think that the whole world needs something to keep them busy so they can't pay attention to the hairy, scary that we're all being called to watch when we really don't need to watch, right? I think we should all pay attention to our own vicinity. I know, right? It's important to but we can't take care of absolutely everywhere's because, it's kind of like that idea, somebody, I was thinking about it today, when you see somebody drowning out in the lake and they can't swim properly, and you run out there, right, to save them, and then that person who is drowning sits on your head and keeps you under the water and stuff, right? You have to make sure that you're a good swimmer and you know how to grab that person from behind and keep them immobile so that in their panic, right? Because if you don't have the tools to take care of them, right, your heart's going to want to do it. But if that beach has got 100 people on it, right, you got to think that maybe you're not the best person to do the job, and you have to accept that, right? It doesn't mean to accept that and not do anything about it, but accept that you don't have that skill and use it as an opportunity to maybe expand on that a little bit, right? Okay, so here we go. Dreams are goals not yet realized. Dreams, they're important. They're so important. For the past, oh my goodness, half a dozen years anyway, it has given me so much joy, so much fun, right? In setting goals and trying to accomplish those goals. And then even the little goals, like I said, today on the goal list, I just had the walk-in closet to do, which was an all-day project, and my bathroom to do. And the bathroom, all I have to do is rinse the tub out now. And my bathroom is done too. So, it doesn't mean great big goals, but you have those goals too. But the little goals are important. And in accomplishing the little goals, it gives you the confidence to say, oh my goodness, I did that all by myself. That's so amazing. I did it. I held myself accountable. I said, right? no eating, no eating after 8 o'clock at night, and you didn't eat. Amazing. And then every time we accomplish something, we feel good about it. And it makes it feel so that we can maybe take on a little bit more after a while. Maybe not right away. It takes time to get used to routine, but build that routine. And once you're comfortable in that routine, it's no problem anymore. Then, right, expand on that and do a little bit more. Expand on those dreams. And it's my bag. Guys hear me talk about it all the time. My bag with the on the end of the stick, and that's my prize. I am somebody who rewards myself, and that's how, unfortunately, it's the way was brought up on reward and punishment. Lots of us in the 60s and 70s were brought up that way. Sorry, right? But to each one of us, we got to figure out solutions because that causes problems, those symptoms, right? The Cindy in the bakery section, right? These problems that we end up having as adults, and we beat ourselves up about it, right? But again, now that I'm 64 years old, I don't feel I need to beat myself because it's not a concern. I'm not getting in the bikini. I'm not chasing the boys down. I'm not looking to get married and have babies, right? So it's not such a big thing for me now as it was, say, 20 years ago, even, right? That it makes me feel better. And once I feel better about that, right, I'm comfortable in that. Okay, we can take on something else now. I didn't have to work very hard in resolving that one. I just grew out of it. But I feel better in this moment. So why don't we focus on something else, right? And those symptoms are still there. So it tells me that those issues are still there, but they're not related to how I look. They're related to how I feel and in the habitual habits that I have had for my entire life. So I set these goals, and it's in my hopes of resolving and working through these goals that I'm going to better my life, at the very least be able to manage to get through these not so great moments with a little bit more stability than I used to, right? Yes, I shed a few tears this week, but it's been a long time since I did that, and I used to do that all the time, every day, right? For every little thing that went wrong in my life. And now I look at everything that goes wrong in my life, and I look at it and I go, oh my goodness, right? It's not such a big deal. And sometimes when you look at it that way, you realize that it isn't a big thing. And once it comes off your plate and you forget about it, it resolves itself all on its own. And you really realize how insignificant it was in the first place, right? And yet we want to beat ourselves up for stuff that has even happened yet. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the lessons that come across my path, right? The very least, it makes me feel better, and it gives me, right? It's fun. It is fun, and it's beneficial for me. It's very beneficial for me. Maybe not for Cindy too, for myself too, but it's for those other parts of me that I believe that has been stepping into big doo-doos lifetime after lifetime and after lifetime. And whether it's with intent or without intent, it doesn't matter. It's still happening, and it shouldn't be happening. And it's a matter of figuring out a way to resolve it. But sometimes again, in those habitual things we just do over and over and over again, right? It's a matter of how do you resolve something that you grew out of, right? Where it's not a big deal anymore. It's about putting yourself in other people's feet or other people's shoes and living vicariously through those same problems that you have and seeing how other people are handling it, right? Or put yourself in your own shoes and put yourself back to when it all started messing up with you, and then just start working through it. But again, right? It's a little bit of bravery and courage that you need to drum up for that. And that's why I just admire some of these people out there, doing their thing and sharing in the conversations, and you know, maybe I'm a little bit of a couch philosopher. Maybe, right? It is interesting, but also at the same time, I think, I didn't know much about what Carl Jung was talking about 6 years ago. It was all Chinese to me. I didn't understand any of it. I thought he was kind of kooky. I thought he was way, way out there. And I thought probably he was a little bit boring and off base on a lot of topics. And for the past 2 or 3 months now, I've been going into his content. Oh my goodness. We had a lot more commonalities in some of our ideas that right? And like I said, I didn't understand anything, but it's in the moment. It's because you need the prerequisite of the lesson beforehand before you're able to understand the next lesson. So maybe that's a good sign for me. Now, if I can finally get into this Dostoevsky book, oh, what's it? I can't even pronounce his name. It's been sitting on my shelf for 2 years. I tried to read it. I got through like 2 pages and I put it down and I said, yeah, no, this ain't going to work for me. But I bet you if I picked it up again, that I might appreciate some of his ideas. You never know. Sometimes it's just in the timing, and sometimes it's in the prerequisites. Maybe I needed to read, get to know a little bit of Carl Jung's perspectives before I would be able to understand this other one. Not to say one is more intelligent and or had more to offer than the other. It's just a different perspective, right? And sometimes you need what do you call that? A prerequisite. You need a lesson before, right? You don't go jump unless you're like super genius. You don't go from grade 7 to grade 12, right? And you bypass all those lessons. No, you have to take the lessons. Otherwise, you're going to get to grade 12 and you're going to go, oh my goodness, like, what's this all about? Right? And then you stay in grade 12 for half a dozen years. Okay, you guys. That's all I got for you tonight. Yeah, I really and I got to pick out my tent too. I made 3 choices on 3 different tents. And so that you can feel like it's a little bit of a surprise for me. So yeah, the tent is off the list and it was on my goal list for this year, right? So it's now off my list and it's really neat. I really like working with goal lists. And like I said, this year I wasn't too sure what I could accomplish for the year coming up, but I made my short list of things that I desperately need. Then I made a little list, right? Because, it's got to be a little bit of what you want and a little bit of what you need. Otherwise, you're going to be bored with it or you're going to think it's punishment, right? I believe in rewarding. I'm not very good at waiting to the very end to get your reward. I need little rewards in between, and that's the problem with the food is because I use the food now also as a reward because it's really easy for me to get in and be a student and a spectator when I've got a bag of chips or something going on, right? So I'm going to resolve a little bit at that now, only because, and I have been trying, and it is in the back and forth, and it is in the failures, and then readjusting and trying something new or trying the don't eat after 8 o'clock thing now. We'll see how that goes. I'm assuming, right? 8 o'clock's a good time for me. And quite often I am eating like an hour before I go to bed because, you know, Cindy's making board fun. And that's how I make things fun. Okay, you guys, that's my good cheer. And I'll see you tomorrow.